Welcome to another edition of Let's Play TNA 2016. I told you I was going to try and do better as far as keeping things consistent, and this, my friends, is the best I can do at keeping things consistent because the gap has not been that far. But either way, let's ignore that and focus on this. Focus on this week's episode of Impact Wrestling. And without further ado, let's jump into it and find out who will be facing Kurt Angle at this month's one-night only event for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. We kick off the show with a six-man tag team pre-show match between Eli Drake, Rocky Santiago, CJ Esparza against Jody Christopherson and Bryce Benjamin and Acid Reed. Or Acid Jazz, sorry. And the babyfaces get the victory, and that is Eli Drake's team. They get the victory in this week's pre-show match. And the second pre-show match of the week is John Silver against Brandon Watts. Yes, I am aware that John Silver is one half of whatever his tag team name is, Silver and Reynolds with Alex Reynolds. And I also am aware that Brandon Watts is one half of Milk Chocolate, but Alex Reynolds is injured at this moment, so John Silver is a singles wrestler, and I needed to get him a win, because he hadn't been used since Alex's injury. Now we kick off the show with Ethan Carter III, Rey Mysterio, and Kurt Angle, and Ethan Carter's playing the age card with both Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle, saying that his age makes him better. The fact that he's younger makes him better, and I'm not going to even mention the fact that the game even thinks that the job that Josh Matthews would have done in this segment, well, I'm not going to insult that, or I'm not going to touch that one. But either way, the match is set. The main event: Ethan Carter III versus Rey Mysterio Jr., with the winner going on to face Kurt Angle at this month's one-night only pay-per-view, and Kurt says to end the segment that he will be at ringside on commentary for the match. Ignore this. And now the first match of the night is Homicide versus Rockstar Spud, and Rockstar Spud comes up short against Homicide tonight. I have something planned with Spud coming up around the corner, but not right now. Still got a little bit of a ways to go. And now we head backstage with Bram and Rob Echoes, and the audio quality is not that good, so it's like you're hearing every other word from them. But we don't know for sure what they're planning or what they're talking about, but what we do know is they might be planning to get involved in the main event tonight. Tigre Uno does his normal, or what has become his normal, almost weekly open challenge to find his next challenger for the X Division title, and the challenge is not only accepted by Kyle O'Reilly, but Kyle O'Reilly comes up from behind and attacks Tigre Uno and decisively accepts his challenge, as Kyle will be the next challenger for Tigre's X Division Championship. And now we move to the next match, and it is a knockouts match as Awesome Kong defeats Taryn Terrell after Taryn Terrell got herself intentionally counted out. Isn't this logical? Isn't this logical? Taryn Terrell gets herself counted out to protect herself going into a match. Last woman standing with Gail Kim in 3 weeks for the Knockouts title. She's not going to want to fight Kong. So she's protecting herself. Right? Right. Logical. This is a video package highlighting the history that Beer Money has in TNA and the past and how dominant they were in the tag team division for TNA, and what does this possibly mean now that that Beer Money Incorporated is back in business, baby. And now we move to an unfamiliar sight, as Mike Bennett is actually in action tonight on Impact against Braden Knight, sorry. And I say a rare sight because I don't remember the last time Mike Bennett was actually in a match, on Impact that is, because I very often book him on Explosion. Who's turning heel? Oh. Well, alright. Oh shit. Okay, I didn't think it could get worse, but it did. And Mike Bennett and Maria, JB stops him at ringside after his match, and he talks up the Prodigy, and he once again brings up the fact that when Mike Bennett first started in wrestling, he was called a prodigy. And though at first he didn't live up to expectations, he eventually surpassed the expectations. Because the one thing he don't get is that I don't have to call myself a prodigy to make you see that I am. You just have to watch me every week in this ring do what I do best, and that is what I just did. Win. And it's gonna be no different when I step in the ring with that pipsqueak from Boston, the Prodigy. And I will stick him with his first loss. That's a promise. And now we move to James Storm and Bobby Roode's first tag team match in a long time together under the moniker of Beer Money, as they go against Brady Pierce and Dean Ambrose's brother, Chase Burnett, and beat the two local boys in pretty decisive fashion. Specifically, as it says down here, Bobby Roode looked excellent, and James Storm came out of the match looking good. Bobby Roode finished with a 92 in-ring performance, and James Storm with an 80. I'd say yes, I agree with that definition, that Bobby Roode looked excellent, and James Storm looked good. But either way, both men have excellent chemistry as a tag team, and it showed in that match. And now we move to the second of two Knockouts matches tonight, as Velvet Sky goes up against Jade to mix things up a little bit from what we normally see, which is Gail Kim versus the Dollhouse. There are other women in the division. But the intriguing thing is this. Following the match, as Velvet's making her way up to the ring, Madison Rayne meets her on the stage. There is no microphones, there is no audio, but it seems like Madison has an offer for Velvet, and Velvet just throws up her hands and says that she'll hear her out, and they walk backstage together. For those who may not remember, Madison Rayne and Velvet Sky were members of the Beautiful People, so this could be something intriguing or I hope you're as intrigued as I am about where I'd be going with this. And now, if you remember correctly, Micah fought last week against, Brian Myers. Micah fought last week against Brian Myers, and I mentioned that I actually take into account wins and losses. Jesse Goddard's won his last match on Explosion earlier this week, and that's why he got in this match against Micah. And actually, Micah won his second match. Micah won, and now is on a two-match winning streak. So let's see if he can stack the wins on top of each other and build towards a future title match in TNA. Because as I've mentioned, I actually do care about the wins. Speaking of wins, Lashley gets the victory over Tyrus this week. This after defeating someone last week. I think it might have been Abyss, actually. I think he defeated Abyss last week. And the reason basically was just to give Lashley TV time, because I hadn't been booking Lashley the best thus far this year, and that's why I'm giving him I guess you could say random matches that I'm giving him just to give him TV time as I develop something for him. And speaking of earlier tonight, with Tigre Uno issuing an open challenge, this is not an open challenge, and this is not an attack. But the one little thing is, and this is a good reason, this is a good reason. The rating right here. I'd give these two complete control of the segment. Because this is when Anderson comes out and says that, well, it's basically a play off the shoot promo he did with Mike Tenay last week. But now he's saying that he wants his next challenger to be the embodiment of TNA. To have the legacy of this company in his blood. And to want to do right by this company's legacy. And maybe even by his own. And then from then on, I'd let them take the segment because I want them speaking from the heart. I want them speaking from the heart, talking about what their legacy in this business means to them. And in particular, what their legacy in this company means to them. Specifically EY. Because he's been in this company from almost the very beginning. And with that being said, he's been here long enough to have a legacy. Anderson, not so much. But I want EY and Anderson speaking from the heart in this segment, and I can't write what they should say. That's why this segment would be a shoot. It would be unscripted. It would be a worked shoot. They would have complete control over, well, no. I don't want to call it a shoot. Creative freedom. They have creative control over the segment. They can say what they want, do what they want, as long as they're speaking from the heart. Because I want them speaking from the heart. Because that shows what that title, the TNA Heritage title, means to both of them. Because it's supposed to embody the heritage that goes along with the legacy of TNA. It is supposed to embody TNA. And now we move to the main event as Ethan Carter III goes up against Rey Mysterio Jr. And Rey gets the victory off a botched interference from Bram. And though, I thought that this match would have done a little bit better, I'm not disappointed. But there's a little bit more to this story, and that is this. Following the match, Bram and EC3, a visibly pissed off EC3, are arguing, and Rob Echoes is trying to keep them apart and keep their little faction together. But you can tell cracks are starting to form in the faction with Rob Echoes, Ethan Carter III, and Bram. And logical. It's logical. The reason for the cracks... Sorry, I hit my microphone. The reason for the cracks to be forming is logical because Bram just cost EC3 a shot at the TNA World Heavyweight title. And the last sight we've seen before this show goes off the air is EC3 leaving the ring in a hut, visibly pissed off at both Rob Echoes and Bram, and just walking out, looking back at them, and then looking, and then he keeps walking out of the arena as we go off the air, and you hear Josh Matthews say, "What does this mean for the future with these two? Find out next week." And that is the best way to end it because, number one, you set it up for an anticipated matchup with two known talents fighting over the TNA World title, which brings Rey Mysterio fans to TNA because I'm going to be building up Rey versus Kurt for the TNA World Heavyweight title. Yes, I know. Oh, Rey Mysterio versus Kurt Angle for a world title in 2016? It's for marketing purposes. Because Rey Mysterio's a known name. Kurt Angle's a known name. You market both of them as a pay-per-view main event, people will watch it. People will watch it. And you throw in talent like Mike Bennett and The Prodigy and Mr. Anderson and Eric Young and The Wolves versus Beer Money, which, by the way, was currently the only pay-per-view match set. But now it is official. Rey Mysterio Jr. will face Kurt Angle for the TNA World Heavyweight title at the next One Night Only pay-per-view, which at this point is just called One Night Only. But I actually just came up, and I will try and come up with a name by the next episode of this series. But if you would like to come up with a name, let me know in the comment section below what you're thinking about what I could name this upcoming One Night Only pay-per-view. Should I go back and take a name from old school TNA, where one of their old pay-per-view names? Or should I take from what I did earlier in the year, where I came up with the name like Champion versus Champion, or Crowning a Champion, or something like that? But either way, the card for this month's big event is forming slowly but surely and is coming together. But now, the questions still lead as we build up to the pay-per-view. What does the future hold for the trio of Ethan Carter III, Bram and Rob Echoes? What happens next between Tigre Uno and Kyle O'Reilly? And, well, what do I have planned for Rockstar Spud, Bobby Lashley, and Micah? Because Bobby Lashley and Micah can't just keep winning matches. And if that wasn't enough, Madison Rayne and Velvet Sky, where do I go from here? All this and more will be talked about in the next episode of Impact. So if you enjoyed this one, let me know. Feel free to leave a comment on the video, or you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here at Wrestling Express. And next time, I'll actually remember my outro. But you'll have to tune in to find out if I do. So see you next time.